You're in my yard and
You got some nerve!
Do not put that in my face.
You got some nerve coming on my property! She has a problem with all these stupid people! Get off!
You on film. You on film. You want to be in my yard?
Sir, we're going to pick you up. We're going to put you back in the wheelchair here,
You ain't gonna do shit.
You're really going to do this? Let go of him! He didn't do anything to us. I got his property!
Get off my
Oh my God!
No, get off my property.
That's a video of officers assaulting 38-year-old Marine Corps veteran, Corporal retired Mel Cort. He lost both of his legs in Ramadi, Iraq on December 7, 2005. He is a wounded combat veteran, and he was on his own private property.
This just goes to show that oftentimes all police officers really are doing are defending their positions of authority. They're defending their right to be the ones to tell you what to do. You know, even though they came up on his property, even though they weren't really supposed to be there, they got called because a woman said that he was damaging her fence, even though the part of the fence she said was being damaged was on his property.
On October 21st, 2022, his neighbor, Cheryl Cade, called the police because she was accusing her neighbor, Mel Cort, of damaging her fence. This is a video of the fence in question. The fence is 38 years old and runs along the adjacent properties. Cheryl Cade, the neighbor, has no proof or evidence that Mel Cort damaged her fence, and he didn't, but she decided on October 21st to accuse him of it and then call the police. The police came out, took her statement, and then wanted to talk to Mr. Cort. Mr. Cort was answering their questions from across the fence, but they wanted to be closer. He told them, no, do not come on my property. I do not consent. But in true fashion, they didn't give a f.
They pull up there, they see he's in a wheelchair. They don't do enough investigation to see who he was that he had served, and they could see that he was very uncomfortable. But instead of reading the room and doing what they could to really mitigate the situation in a way that made sense, they had to escalate everything to the point where they literally took him out of the wheelchair on the ground, were assaulting him, and didn't stop until they had him in the car with the handcuffs on.
They came on his property anyway, with backup. Mr. Cort repeatedly told them to leave his property. He did not want them there. He informed them to go get a warrant if they wanted to come on his property without his permission. They do not care. Rather than do anything to de-escalate the situation, they instead escalated it. When Mr. Cort had finally had enough, he said, I'm done with this, and tried to leave. The officers blocked his wheelchair, refused to let him leave, and then eventually drug him out of his wheelchair and arrested him, as you saw in the opening video. They charged him with assaulting a peace officer, which they later dropped because it was...
So again, oftentimes police officers, when they pull up and they do things like this, they're simply defending their position of authority and nothing more. We actually covered this story the other day on Dr. Richie's show on Indisputable. And, you know, sometimes people will say, well, you know, maybe he should have handled it with less aggression. He should have approached the situation a bit differently. But that's really besides the point, because he didn't have a gun. He didn't have a knife. He wasn't putting the police officers' lives in danger whatsoever. I mean, the man literally had his legs amputated. What's someone with amputated legs going to do when you are, you know, fully able? You're fully able to walk around. Not only do you have guns, you have on bulletproof vests, you have a nightstick, you have tasers, mace, black pepper spray, all of that. You have all of those things, and there's multiple of you. There's multiple officers. So from top to bottom, this is ridiculous. And too many times, that's what people say. It's like, well, if you just complied a bit more, if you were just a little bit nicer, then the police officers wouldn't have done what they did. But we saw what happened. And again, that's besides the point, when all they're usually doing in situations like this is defending their position of authority. That's it.
This happened on a Friday, and Mr. Cort spent the entire weekend in jail. During the arrest, they put the handcuffs on so tight, they left welts on his wrist. And to add insult to injury, while he was in jail, they didn't properly administer his diabetes medication, so he ended up in the infirmary twice, once in very serious condition. The terrorist responsible for this is Deputy Alex Caldwell of the Licking County Sheriff's Office and Officers Zach Sarver and Janessa Justice of the Pataskala Police Department. I have helped the family set up a GoFundMe to assist them with the legal fees because this was an egregious violation of this man's human and civil rights. The link to the GoFundMe is in my bio. This man lost both of his legs in Iraq, only to come home and fall victim to the terrorism of police. I need you to comment, like, share. Blow this story up. We must seek accountability.
And then after the whole debacle in front of his family, they took him to jail and, of course, didn't give him the treatment that he needed. You know, and this just goes to show how little times police officers are really prepared to handle anything. You call police officers because someone's, maybe going through a mental health break episode. Who knows? Whatever. Maybe you just need some assistance for something. Maybe you got locked out of your car and you need to come. Well, they pull up and, you're trying to break in here? Who are you? You know what I'm saying? That type of stuff happens a lot because police training isn't worth a damn in this country. Oftentimes we end up having people. We just saw the footage of the guy getting beat up in the Camden jail cell by all those police officers there. They protect each other, and oftentimes police precincts attract some of the worst people that municipalities have to offer. So this is why police reform is so important, and this is why we have to get more involved at the local level, because that's the only way we're going to see any type of meaningful change.